Hi, I'm Sharon, and today we're going to talk about traveling to Canada with the coronavirus pandemic. I have been in Canada now since the 9th of June, which is now 4 days, and this is my fourth day of self-quarantine, which I'm doing in Squamish. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my experience because I know that a lot of people are coming to Canada with an IEC at the moment and a job offer, which is what you need to enter Canada right now. Usually you wouldn't need that. When you apply for a working holiday visa, like for any other country, you just get to come to the country because you have a valid visa. But because of the coronavirus, Canada only allows people that have a job offer, which I had. You will need a few other things like healthcare insurance, a quarantine plan, proof of funds, and so on. But it's fairly easy and straightforward if you have all the right documents. It took me a little while to decide to actually come to Canada because I was planning on coming in April. But then lockdown in Italy got quite intense and I decided to postpone my plans and come later on. So basically what I did was, as soon as I got in contact again with my employer and restrictions in Italy eased a little bit, I booked my flight, which got cancelled with Turkish Airlines, but I didn't give up and I just booked another flight with Air Canada. So my new flight was leaving from Milan with a layover in Frankfurt, Montreal, and then Vancouver. I was a little bit worried, I have to be honest, because Milan is in Italy the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic, kind of like the region is. Milan is in the region. I left with my brother and sister, which took me to the airport by car. I got there and people don't really know what to do with you if you're leaving for a country that sort of has restriction on people that are immigrating, but sort of not. I was allowed in the country because I had a point of entry letter and a job offer. But they were very thorough. They checked all my documents, and even though I got through security, when I got to the gate, they stopped me again and they asked me again for all the documents, and they wonder why the first lady let me through, because I didn't have some sort of checks and whatnot. But yeah, flight was quite smooth to Frankfurt. It takes quite a long time to get through security, to get from the plane to the next gate or the next plane flight that you have because of coronavirus. So you should plan to have enough layover to get through security and to get through all sorts of things that might happen. I got to Frankfurt no problem. They checked my documents only at the entry when I got into the airport from the plane, and they checked again my papers at the gate for the Air Canada flight, but I was let on with no issues at all. From Frankfurt to Montreal, the flight was pretty smooth. You don't get the same food that you would normally, which is not great. Montreal was my first entry point to Canada, which means that my visa was going to be issued in Montreal, which is where I might have had the most problems. When you enter the airport, you get to an area where there are lots of kiosks where you have to fill out some sort of an interactive questionnaire where they ask you a lot of questions about what you're bringing in, the reason for your stay in Canada, and then it will print out a little slip that you have to bring to the officer at the little stand. Now, I had declared that I had some meat in my bag, which is something that delayed my entry so much, and thank God I had 2 hours and 45 minutes of layover, because if I only had an hour or 2 hours, I would have not made my flight. Apparently you're not allowed to bring meat into Canada, which I didn't know. So after the kiosks, I had to go to the officer and I had to present him with all my documents, and I had to show him the slip that the machine printed out. The slip basically said that I declared that I had meat. So he said that I should have gone to another place where they would have inspected my bag after receiving my visa. You are sent through this office, which is like a massive waiting area where there are like a few people in there that will issue your visa. Now, Canadian visa this is my work permit, which was issued on the 9th and is valid for 6 months for Italians, but you know, if you're from another country, it might be valid for 1 year or 2 years, depending on where you're from. It's a paper document, which is pretty unusual considering that I've traveled quite a bit and work permits are always usually on, you know, like on your passport, so it's not a printed document, but you will get a printed document in Canada which you have to keep, and it will tell you all the conditions of your visa in it. So it will tell you if you can work with children. For example, if you're an au pair, you have to have done your medicals in your country of residence. If you forgot about it, you can still do them in Canada, but you have to book and you have to repay the fees, so it's a little bit of a pain. So I suggest you look into that before coming to Canada if you want to be an au pair, or if you want to be, you know, like working with kids or with elderly or things like that. You can't work in sex trade, which is something else that you can't do on this visa. That was it. I just got my visa. The lady at the check-in at the desk was really nice, and she only asked me for my documents, which I had in a bag, in a little slip, and I just literally gave them the slip every time they asked me for the documents. So you can just do that. You have all your documents printed. I will link all the documents that you need down below. Have them in a slip and just give it to them whenever they ask you for it, because they will ask you a lot of times for the slip. Now, something very important is that you need to have a quarantine plan. Quarantine plan means that you need to know where you're staying for the 14 days after your arrival in the country, and you need to know who's picking you up, who's bringing you food, and all that kind of thing. Now, they will ask you to fill out a paper form that they keep with all the addresses and phone numbers, and they'll keep it, and they might contact you if they feel the need to, I guess. They haven't called me yet, and it's been 4 days, so I don't know. But I was lucky enough to have a place provided by my employer, which is this caravan that I'm in. I'm not allowed to talk to anybody. I mean, I can talk to someone, but I'm not allowed to, you know, be in close contact with anybody. From Montreal to Vancouver, it was a very easy flight, domestic, so it means that when you land, no one asks you for anything. You have to grab your bags and literally you're out the door. So if you want to come to Canada as a tourist right now, you are not allowed to do so. And I'm not sure how long that's gonna last. Maybe not long, because Canada relies on tourism, so I'm kind of hoping that they'll open borders soon. That said, I don't think there were a lot of issues. I am happy to be in Canada, and I would highly recommend you come over if you can and you have a job offer. If you have any questions about documents, or you want to know a few more information, or you're worried about something, just feel free to send me a message on Instagram. I'll leave the links down below for my Facebook, my Instagram, and whatever. And I will make more videos about Canada, so if you also want to subscribe, that would be great. And that's about it. So yeah, come to Canada. If you're coming, let me know.